July 19th, 2014, the first ever Iron Banner went live. During the first public beta test for Destiny 1 just 2 days after its release, Bungie announced that they would, for a limited time only, open up the Iron Banner game mode for PvP. This would open up a new section of the tower for the first time ever, and would only stay open for the duration of the event, and gave players access to a unique vendor, Lord Saladin. Up until July 19th, PvP in both the alpha and beta was balanced across the board, meaning not factoring in players' levels. But inside Iron Banner, your level mattered, prompting players to try and reach the beta level cap of 8 in order to stand a chance at competing. This is where players could take their fully geared out character to fight for the best rewards. And let's take a look at the rewards during that first ever beta. Saladin sold a couple shaders, a couple emblems, some class items, and a few armor pieces. And most importantly, a heavy machine gun. A few more rewards could be earned inside the game mode itself and dropped after a match completion, and those were the Teamer's Lash hand cannon and the Birth of History ship. 2 new maps would be unlocked to commemorate the release of the Iron Banner, Rusted Lands and Blind Watch. The event took place multiple times throughout the beta during 2-hour increments, only on the weekends. Iron Banner wasn't anything different from the regular Crucible Control game mode, but the intensity and competitiveness was cranked up a notch because winning was the only way to earn reputation with Lord Saladin. And because your level and gear mattered, things were a bit more serious.
Super triple!
Fast forward to the launch of Destiny 1, players would get their chance to experience Iron Banner in its final form, about a month after the game went live. Saladin brought along the same rewards as he did in the beta, but the items could actually be equipped now since they required level 20 to use even during the beta, which was capped at level 8. So for the duration of 1 week, players grinded out the Iron Banner as much as possible to earn these rewards, but something felt a bit off with the event. The level advantages were barely noticeable, which came as a disappointment to many fans looking to flex their power over lower leveled Guardians, something that Bungie would end up addressing in their next weekly blog post, noting that they had been too conservative with their power level discrepancies. In the next Iron Banner, we will debut a much more dramatic difference between players of wide variation in level. Bungie would also address quitters in the playlist. See, because Iron Banner only rewarded reputation of players if they won the match, this meant that players who found themselves losing were more inclined to just leave and load up another game. In the next Iron Banner, players who lost would still get no reputation, but would receive a medallion that could be cashed in for a small amount of rep upon their next win. So another month went by and players were eager to try out the game mode with some new changes in place, and the results would be very popular.
Heavy ammo available.
Lord Saladin received a lot of changes. Not only did he bring a lot more new rewards this time, but also some bounties to aid in gaining more reputation during the event. He also had a new option available to players, Reforging. Reforging would be the first introduction of a weapon crafting style system in the Destiny franchise, and it allowed players to spend 2 motes of light to change their Iron Banner weapon perks at the cost of resetting its progress. This would become very important for the future of the Iron Banner. The gameplay itself became even more intense with the changes to level advantage and really rewarded those top players who grinded for the best gear by giving them a major edge over their opponents. There were some complaints from the casual audience who got their asses kicked, but the rest of the community knew that in order to be the best, they had to up their game, work harder to increase their level and find better gear, spend more time for that god-rolled weapon, grind those nightfalls and strikes for a chance at the oh-so-broken at the time Suros regime. It incentivized players to improve so that the next time Iron Banner came around, they would be the ones at the top of the leaderboards, reaping all the rewards from Saladin. The next Iron Banner was in December, a week after the Dark Below. It brought along high-level gear that could help players reach the new level cap of 32, and one of the most famous Iron Banner weapons, Aphrodite's Spear. This is where the reforging mechanic became very popular as players would try their best to get an Aphrodite's Spear with the final round or luck in the chamber perk. This allowed for one-shot body shots in PvP. Motes of light were still hard to come by, so you still needed to be lucky on the reforges. And this proved to be a bit of a flaw for the balance in PvP. Also by this point, likely thanks to its popularity in Iron Banner, Suros regime would receive its second nerf. Yet despite that, it still remained a powerhouse in the game mode.
Minutes remaining. Zone B lost. Enemy captured Zone B.
Iron Banner had certainly become one of the most popular modes in the game, and players lived to see its return each month for that next high-level piece of armor, and to earn whichever new weapons would come next. The most important week in Iron Banner history would arrive in February 2015, which brought one of the most infamous weapons in franchise history, Felwinter's Lie, a high-impact, high-range shotgun which became the most popular weapon to reforge in hopes of getting a shot package roll. The amount of motes of light spent were likely in the millions across all Guardians because Felwinter's Lie, at the time of its release, was the most insane shotgun the game has ever seen. Due to its popularity, Iron Banner received a lot of attention during Year 1 of Destiny, getting new weapons and armor sets every 3 months. And with the House of Wolves, Iron Banner continued to be popular for reasons related to endgame rewards and materials like etheric light, but also because of the top tier weaponry, which could then be taken into the new game mode, Trials of Osiris. Reforging weapons like Felwinter's and Aphrodite's became even more popular, despite getting a cost increase to do so. With the release of the Taken King, Iron Banner was not slighted in the least. Weapons like Nerwin's Mercy and Iron Wreath were must-haves, and the new armor sets were arguably the best in the franchise's history. Saladin received some new updates and changes made to his progression system, with 3 weekly bounties and 2 bounties that reset daily. Game modes would now be on rotation for Iron Banner, instead of being tied down to just control. Clash and Rift would now be in the mix. And Iron Banner continued to be a place for high-level Guardians to grow stronger and chase those god-rolled weapons and armor. Reforging was removed from the game, so the only way to farm for these rolls was to continue playing during the event. Weapon and armor drop rates increased if you were at max level, which incentivized players to continue playing Iron Banner even after reaching max ranks. And the chance at one of the rarest ships in the game also kept players grinding as well. Over the next few months, we'd seen all Iron Banner had to offer during the Taken King year, because unfortunately this was the last major update Iron Banner would see, besides some minor changes. But for the duration of the Taken King year, Iron Banner still did bring tons of players back each month to take part in the event. With the release of the Iron Banner expansion, Iron Banner would reach its highest peak. And if you ever question the popularity of Iron Banner up to this point, an expansion focused around its themes and characters should tell you all you need to know. The first major change to the Iron Banner would be its location. Retiring his post at the Old Tower, Saladin moved on to assisting the Guardians regain the Iron Temple in the campaign. Being further preoccupied with the Siva crisis, Saladin appointed Lady Aphrodite to take his place and be the new guide for the Iron Banner tournament, and set up just outside the Iron Temple. Not only was this completely fitting for the theme of the expansion, and made the event feel that much more impactful, but the rework done to the Iron Banner for Year 3 cemented the mode into a state of near perfection. The first change was the removal of the buff that increased reputation each successive day, and instead rebalanced the reputation gain so that it leveled out to be more even, and incentivized players to just play every day no matter if it was at the beginning of the week or towards the end, instead of previously where it was more worth it to just wait and farm the last few days. A change was also made that incentivized maxing out multiple characters by vastly increasing reputation gains on your second and third characters once your main one had reached max rank. This was especially great if you wanted to secure all armor sets across all characters. Bungie would also remove the requirement to wear Iron Banner class items and shaders to receive a reputation buff, and just applied that buff to the rep gains across the board, which allowed players to look how they wanted and still earn the highest rep. Lady Aphrodite's inventory brought along so many new items that were completely unique. Whereas in Year 1 and 2, Iron Banner weapons and armor were just slightly different reworks of existing weapons and armor found anywhere in the game, In Year 3, the models were completely unique, having very distinctive designs that represented the theme and style of the Iron Lords perfectly. The weapons not only looked great, but they were genuinely top tier. Almost all of them. Weapons like the Clever Dragon and the Unbent Tree being particular standouts. The bounties here were at their most rewarding and well balanced, and the sandbox at the time helped Iron Banner stay popular throughout the entirety of Year 3, with Age of Triumph adding even more to the fun with the inclusion of Mayhem Clash for the event. Iron Banner in Destiny 1 was nearly perfect, but unfortunately would see its last event take place on August 7th, 2017, as Bungie would no longer be supporting the event for D1 in order to support Destiny 2. So Destiny 2 released in a state many of us can describe as the dark ages of the franchise, and Iron Banner certainly took a hit in the process. Because of the new sandbox and changes to random rolls, Iron Banner didn't have much of a reason to exist. Power levels were no longer enabled. Bounties had been removed from the game, which extended to Iron Banner, replaced with a god-awful token system. 6v6 was replaced with 4v4, meaning Iron Banner was no longer a place for raid teams to spend the rest of their night together. Saladin took back over the event, leaving Felwinter Peak to ruin, I guess, and set up shop inside this new tower. Why we couldn't go back to Felwinter Peak for the sake of this event, I'll never understand. Random rolls were gone, which meant you wouldn't need to spend more than a couple hours interacting with the event to get all the loot. The loot itself was no longer unique and distinct with its design. It was back to sharing the same weapon models of every other weapon in the game. The armor designs were also laughable by comparison to D1. It was a complete downgrade in every area, like much of Destiny 2 was in general. And for the duration of D2 Year 1, the Iron Banner was a completely pointless event. With the release of Forsaken, things did get a bit better for the Iron Banner. First off, 5 new PvP maps, an obvious dub for replayability's sake. Forsaken brought back bounties, which extended to the Iron Banner of course. Random rolls also made a return, which made Iron Banner god roll farming a thing once again. Power level advantage was back. Distinctive weapon and armor designs were also back. Top tier weapons like Bite of the Fox and Claws of the Wolf were the cherry on top, and with each successive season, new weapons and armor were added. Things seemed to be back on track for Iron Banner. Unfortunately, Iron Banner would be pushed aside during Shadowkeep's year, only getting 1 new armor set and no new weapons. Iron Banner quickly became just another way to farm power level, Destiny 2's new primary focus. During Season of Arrivals, a few additions would be made to perks for the weapons, like the Iron Gaze and Iron Grip, but with Iron Banner seeing no additions or changes throughout the year, and a general lack of PvP attention from Bungie, the mode became stagnant. Beyond Light's year was about the same as Shadowkeep's, except not even new armor sets or weapons this time, at least at launch. There was a handful of new weapons released throughout the year, and were fairly popular, but losing half the PvP maps and power level grinding remaining the sole reason to play the mode, it continued to leave Iron Banner feeling even more barren and forgotten. With the release of the Witch Queen, Iron Banner saw a bit more attention than Beyond Light and Shadowkeep, but that's not saying much. There was a new armor set at Witch Queen launch, and a couple new weapons, but most of the year has relied on old weapons with updated perk pools. Most recently with Season of the Seraph, we've seen the return of the Taken King Iron Banner armor sets to much applause, and introduced a new Fortress game mode to much disdain. Certainly an interesting concept that ultimately nobody is enjoying. Will the Iron Banner ever receive attention like it used to back in Destiny 1 and Forsaken? The answer to that is likely no, in my opinion. Bungie has a completely different focus of what they want to do with Destiny, and I don't see Iron Banner attention or PvP attention in general in that vision Bungie has. But that is a look back at Iron Banner from 2014 to 2023. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one.